in growing problems and there's maybe never
Want to get started?
Yep.
Welcome to our Women's in Engineering Leadership panel. So I just want to start off with kind of like the flow of how today's going to go. We're going to start off with the introductions of our panelists, and then we'll do that for about an hour where they'll be answering some predetermined questions. And then after that, we'll move on to like more Q&A based sessions where you guys can answer or ask questions towards the panelists and they'll give you responses. But if at any time like you have a question you're dying to ask, just feel free to raise your hand and just answer them. Okay, and then we'll start with the introductions. We'll start over here with Sky, and then we'll go down.
Hi, my name is Sky Hargrove. I'm the project manager of the Rocket Project.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Brasher. I'm the project manager for the Anteater Formula Racing team.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Chu. I also go by Liz. I'm the project manager of Hyperxite.
I'm Maya. I'm the project manager for Spacecraft Thermal Management Systems at UCI.
And one thing I want to add is that hopefully after this session is done, we learned a little bit about their experiences, some of the struggles that they've faced, some of the victories that they've had, and we can kind of apply that experience and that knowledge to our future endeavors when it comes to joining leadership or participating, getting involved in school. And then now we'll move on to the questions. We'll start off with, what is your project's focus and what are your team's current goals? And then feel free, any of you guys, just to speak up about it.
Want to just start? I don't mind.
Sure. Okay, well, like I said, we're from the Rocket Project. Yeah, our focus this year is to have a successful launch of our current system, and then we're also working on the next iteration of our rocket. The current system is supposed to hit apogee around 20,000 feet, and it's a liquid bipropellant system.
So I'm with the Anteater Formula Racing team. Each year we design, build, and test a running formula styled vehicle. This year we are competing in Michigan in May. And this is actually a 2-year car. So we have a little bit more funding and a lot more fun. So, yeah.
Hyperxite is UCI's Hyperloop team. And if you aren't familiar with the Hyperloop concept, it's a concept popularized by Elon Musk in 2013. So Hyperloop consists of a passenger or cargo pod traveling within a near vacuum tube, utilizing electromagnetic propulsion. So it's supposed to reach speeds up to 760 miles per hour with reduced air resistance and friction due to magnetic levitation. And Hyperxite is on its 8th year of building a small-scale Hyperloop pod. Notable goal for this year for our 8th iteration of the pod is using linear induction motors for that electromagnetic propulsion. And to our knowledge, it's the first linear induction motor developed on UCI's campus.
The goal of STMS, or Spacecraft Thermal Management Systems, we're a little bit different than some other designing and building teams. We do research and development. Our goal is to be developing a variable emissivity device, or VED, as a means of mitigating thermal loads experienced by spacecraft in low Earth orbit. And how we're doing that, we have 2 main divisions, one that is focused on the actual variable emissivity device development via an electrochromic or electrophoretic film that has the ability to change opacity and thus change the absorbance of heat from the sun. And then another division that focuses on the testing environment and vacuum chamber development for testing that VED. But yeah, we're on our 7th year. Making good progress and just continuing researching different ways to develop that device.
Thank you. All interesting projects. I'm actually looking to get into a project myself, so I have some questions for you at the end that I will ask. Hope you don't mind. But the next question is, what inspired you to become an engineer?
So for me, I grew up actually in Florida. So I was watching the rocket launches. Originally I was going to be an aerospace major, and then I ended up switching to mechanical during my first internship, and then I'm specializing in aerospace now.
So I have a couple reasons. One, my mom was an aerospace engineer, so I, from a very young age, knew that like engineering was something a woman could do and could do successfully. And then I found a love for math, and I actually had engineering like classes in high school, so I was able to take some type of like senior design, but at a high school level, my senior year at high school. So I knew before attending college that I wanted to do something in engineering.
I got interested in engineering through a Girl Scouts outreach event, I think in like 8th grade. And then I joined the first robotics team for my high school. It was actually where I met Maya.
I think I also went to that Girl Scout thing. Did you like build circuits and things at that event?
With like UC Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that's how I got interested in mechanical engineering, is in particular at first.
Yeah, I met Liz in high school. We didn't go to the same high school, but we went to high schools that were next to each other. And yeah, I think before that I was lucky to grow up really well supported by my family. My family is not engineering, but I think my parents saw that I had an interest in building things and made an effort to support that. And I think my hometown, Davis, was really a nice like ecosystem for people who wanted to become involved in STEM with Explore It, science museums, and that's where I would go on the weekends. And then, yeah, I got super heavily involved in my high school robotics team, and it was just a natural continuation for me to apply to colleges for engineering if that's what I'd been doing for 4 years prior.
Super cool that you met like that, so it's really cool.
Yeah.
Next question is, what does a day in your life as a project manager look like?
It can kind of vary day to day. I'm still pretty technically involved in the project. I was propulsion lead beforehand, so it'll be either directing tests or placing POs. It'll also be helping out with like the logistics and planning of the team, and or writing procedures, but it really just depends like day to day.
Yeah, I don't think you could put it any better. Like project management is doing something different almost every single day. Like the one thing that will be consistent is going to be inconsistent week to week. So like you have to be okay with inconsistencies, and you have to like learn how to manage through those because you're being looked to like figure out that solution. But it's tough to say like what your day to day will be. I definitely oversee most of the business side, so I'm not as technically involved in the formula team as I could be, and that's the position that I chose, and I really enjoy it. It's actually what I'm doing outside of schooling. Like I'm taking a job as in management after this, and technical management. So I found what I liked. So I do recommend trying different things. This is your opportunity to do that. But overall, I do sponsorship, marketing, admin, anything and all finances, and then whatever else comes to my plate. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing here. It's very chaotic.
Mhm.
I think overseeing all the fine details behind the scenes to make sure the project keeps running, overseeing discussions with our advisor, Professor Rangel, making sure he's up to date with what's happening with the team. We're also trying to host, instead of going to an external competition, we're trying to host and our own demonstration day at UCI's campus. So that's been a lot of the logistics planning for that, as well as, you know, overseeing the purchase requests, the finances, working with our outreach sub team to make sure we're reaching out to potential sponsors and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and not to rehash everything that they had said, but I think to add on to it a little bit, my condition in accepting the project manager role was also that I could be a sub team lead of the sub team that I was on prior, because for me, it was important to remain technically oriented with the project. I felt like I could be the best project manager if I continued to be a part of the actual nitty gritty of what was going on. But I think it was a day-to-day opportunity for me is to like be able to oversee all these conversations that are happening and all the different sub teams, and then also be able to pick and choose if I want to be more involved in a particular sub team in a given week. Like I have a whole division for chemical engineers, and I don't understand anything that they're doing, but I have a couple times stepped in and said, hey, can I join your meeting? I would really like to learn more about this. And it's an opportunity for them to get used to like onboarding a new member, even though it is a project manager. But yeah, it changes a lot day to day. So it really depends. But with that comes a lot of opportunities to be involved in aspects that I never thought I would be involved in.
So you guys are all project managers, and I think it can be daunting, especially it's been daunting for me to kind of get involved in a project, because sometimes you feel that you're not really qualified for the position, even the entry position in a project. So my question to you is, how can a student who's interested in like kind of finding these leadership positions get started in the area?
I would say definitely join a project earlier if you can. I joined Rocket Project my sophomore year. You don't have to join that early, but I would definitely recommend joining earlier than later if you want to be involved in leadership. I would also just make it very clear to the like current project manager or the current leads of the team that you're interested in just like putting in the hours and just taking initiative too.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess if you cannot get in early, because I would also recommend just trying to see like what you would like before you just say that you want a leadership role. And that's what you would do if you're able to get in early. But if you aren't and you know that you're interested in that, there's definitely a need for any type of management, business, outreach, sponsorship. There's a need for you, whatever role that you want to be in, and passion speaks volumes. So if you are passionate about that, there's opportunities to even make your own role, whether it's technical and in management. So I think just my advice would be like communicate what you want, and it's a student project, so we're here to help too. So yeah.
Yeah, to echo that, it's a student project. So I think, eagerness to learn and passion for the project go a very, very far way. Like, don't ever be afraid that you don't have like the technical skills needed for the role, since you're here to learn. I think also, as far as getting involved early, there's also lots of ways to build skills and relevant experiences for these projects through other means, such as clubs. The ESOs are a great resource. Classes as well. So like project-based learning classes, like the MAE 106 class, I think teaches a lot of relevant skills.
Yeah, I think, just to echo what they're all saying, for me as project manager, I look more for initiative and someone who is willing to take responsibility and learn new things over technical knowledge, even just as a general member. And then the people who really stand out, I think, are the people who are able to, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Sometimes when new members come to the team, they're sophomores or juniors, and I can tell from the get-go that they're going to be able to pick up the technical knowledge. I think anyone can learn anything, but it takes a special type of initiative to realize someone's leadership potential. And if they come to you or have come to me and they say they want a leadership role, then I would lean into that and nurture them a little bit more to teach them the organizational things that go along with that leadership. But yeah, I encourage all students just to reach out and get involved in a project.
Thank you. Super useful advice. Next question. Was there a specific experience that was personally affirming to you? And we can start with someone other than Scott.
You do it the other way. Sorry.
Sure. I saw these questions beforehand, and this was the one question where I was like, was there an experience? I think as project manager, I get the unique experience as a liaison between advisors and students. And so in a way, at least on my project, because it is very research heavy and very like presenting your findings type of heavy, I think I kind of act as that mouthpiece for a lot of these students. And there was a couple moments in our general meetings where I think sometimes there's some harsh criticisms coming from advisors or coming from other students. And I am that person to step in and praise people who deserve praise and give people platforms like general members or sub-team leads platforms for the work that they've accomplished. And yeah, that happened a couple weeks ago in our general meeting. And my sub team leads like to use the direct DM function on Zoom, and then will DM me. Like, that was a project manager slay. That was one that my chief engineer said that, for my chief engineer for mechanical division said that. And that was really funny. And I like screenshot it and then put it in our core leadership chat. And I was like, I'm saving this, because it made me feel good, and it let me know that I'm doing something right, and that when I'm speaking up and I guess just being a representative for the students, it is impactful to other people. And that's what, I don't know, makes me happy in my role.
Yeah, so I think one of the major roles at the beginning of my project manager journey was building a team for this upcoming academic year. So it's always really nerve-wracking, like interviewing candidates and trying to find people who are going to work well together on the same sub team. So an affirming experience for me was actually at our gingerbread house social last week. Like seeing people who I'd never met before this project, just really mesh well and use engineering skills and pull people's different background to make like a gingerbread house if it's not even like relevant to the project. And just feeling affirmed, like, okay, I found, I made a good team and that all works together, and having a great time through the project.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a specific time where like I felt I had like a pat on the back, but I know that there's like moments where I can look at myself and be proud of like where I've come. I wouldn't say in high school I was someone who wanted to even talk in front of the class. I didn't think of myself as a leader in high school, and I've come a long way since then to like be in a management role and even pursuing that outside of school. So I think it's important too to be able to acknowledge that in yourself, and just to be able to say like, I'm here for a reason and I see my own growth. I think the situation that maybe was affirming to me was recognizing when I did something wrong and not being upset with myself about it, but being able to like take myself out of being emotional about it and recognizing what the team needed and who I needed to be in that situation. And that was like huge growth. So yeah, that's something that like I continually see, and it's important in this role.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what pretty much everyone else has said. I think as project manager, like in any leadership position, you have to make a lot of decisions really fast, and you don't always know if they're the good decisions, and you don't necessarily ever know if they're good, and you will be challenged on those decisions. But I think at the end of the day, you definitely learn to like trust yourself, and I think that's something that I've learned, and trust your team. I'd say like definitely at the beginning of my like academic career, I was definitely a totally different person, kind of like what Lonnie said. And to just look back at who that person was and then who I am now as a person, and like what being in a leadership position has done for me. Yeah, it's definitely like tangible evidence.
Thank you for all that. Next question is, was there a specific moment where you felt like you didn't belong?
Is there someone who wants to
Yeah.
go first?
Did you want to go first? Is that what you said, yeah or no? Oh, sorry.
do you wanna-
I can go first. So this one's tough because I don't know if I like can answer yourself. Do I feel like I'm not belonging, or is it someone else making me feel like I don't belong? And to like answer that, there can be both situations that happen in a leadership role. Yourself, that's like the personal growth that we were both like talking about. And with others, there's going to be more people that tell you that you're not going to be able to do it than you will. So you have to be the one to tell yourself that you're going to do it. And you have to be that major support for yourself. There's still going to be amazing support, and find that and cling to that and grow from that. But just know when someone says no, or when someone makes it difficult, you can find another way, and it makes you stronger. And that's what you should be doing. So, yeah, I don't know.
I think maybe I can go next. If there's a specific moment when I feel like it didn't belong, like I have plenty, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I think there's the part of my identity as women, as a woman in leadership in engineering, is that there's times in classes when I, like in discussion in propulsion yesterday, had a moment and I'm not really actively thinking about it when I'm going about my daily life, but knowing that I was going to sit on this panel, took a look around my discussion, and I was the only woman in the room, and also was only one of two people speaking up in the room. And there are moments like that that can feel isolating, knowing that, there's nobody who really understands my experience at this moment. But then also in leadership as well, I think project manager, I think we've even talked about it like on the sidelines, like it can feel really isolating being in leadership, because now you feel like you have a sub team or you have a whole team like talking to each other and then not being honest to you. And that's part of why I continue to remain a sub team lead, and I like to establish at least in my sub team, in my division, just a sense of comfort for other members so that we can all feel included. And that also makes me feel more included. Being able to talk about things about school, about how we're feeling, about our mental health, just in our sub team meetings, even if that means that we're going to go a little bit longer. And also showing my sub team members and division members the kindness and comfort and I guess like leeway in being able to take meetings off. And they're not the product of whatever work they get done, they're people. And kind of establishing that and having, I guess, the like lines, the hierarchical like leadership lines blurred a little bit more was really comforting, and it made me feel more belonging in my project, just being able to have those open conversations.
I can go next. I've also had my fair share of times where I felt like I didn't belong. Especially, I came from an all-girls high school, so stepping foot into like my first discussion, I'm like, well, I'm one of 4 girls in a class of 42. This is a little weird. So it's definitely a shift in atmosphere for me. I think it's always disappointing to me when I'm in classes, and especially Discord is so anonymous now that whenever somebody's talking about an engineering student or a professor, they always assume they're male. And it's like, oh, cool. Still, especially now that we're in upper division 2, like looking around and being like, oh, there's, like a 9-to-1 ratio that I'm like in my eye line. It's a little intimidating, but I think I've had a lot of support, especially from SWE. I will talk about the Society of Women Engineers all day long. But I think having moments where I know I'm like, okay, well, I know I have a strong support system outside of this classroom and out of this moment. I think in the project I've had those moments as well where I look around the room and I'm like, we need to do better. I think the project has definitely gotten better at being more diverse. But I hope in the future years it's gonna be even better.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what everyone else said. It's definitely double-sided because you have the engineering part where you feel isolated and different, and then you also have the leadership part where you feel isolated at times too. Yeah, I would say definitely in classes, like Liz and I were saying, the further we've gone up in upper division, you definitely notice the difference. Especially in like technical roles as well. And at internships, I felt the same way as well at times. But being different is like there's definitely like a power to that. And it's definitely like Maya was kind of saying, you can help others in your team feel better about being different and more included, because it just offers you have an insight that not many other people have, and that really is important for your team and making them feel like they have a place in engineering.
I think when you talked about being isolated both in leadership and in engineering, I think it's really insightful, because usually I kind of put them together, my personal experiences, but like, I guess you guys take it as like different things. So I think that's just really insightful. Next question is, what has been the most rewarding moment of leadership for you?
I'll start. So one of the things I really love about leadership is it gives you the opportunity to help others in whatever position they're at. And some of the things that we are able to do are like host recruitment type events for your specific project. And the last year's project manager actually got a job for something that I had completely done on my own to like reach out to a company and have them meet with our project. So that was very nice, I guess, to be able to like see the direct impact of what a project you had planned and started and help everyone network and yeah, talk with people.
We can just go on to the next question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless you have something to add.
Yeah, I have two experiences, one of which, so I am also involved with our pneumatics team, in addition to project manager roles. So it's been really rewarding experience to see like all the knowledge I've helped them learn so that they can like independently test the pneumatic system, and they are like, oh, like today we got the electronic pressure regulator working, or just having moments of that like aha moment, being like, wow, like I helped that moment happen, is really rewarding. I think another moment was our project recently went to the Netherlands for our competition, which was insanely daunting, like overseeing more of the project manager aspect of making sure everybody got their passports on time and visas and getting the presentations up and running and the poster, and oh god, we're taking the brakes off and we're stuffing in the suitcases, are we gonna have to email TSA, like just so many like details to oversee, that like just sitting there and watching my team like give their presentations all the way in Europe and extend our reach internationally was just a really insanely cool moment.
You don't got money. But yeah, I think some of the most rewarding moments actually came around recruitment time. I think being project manager, as I stepped into a role that gave me more control of what the project will look like, I took that and I ran with it and was able to implement policies or implement recruitment strategies that I felt I wish that I had experienced when I was first starting on the team. I have students coming in. A lot of the questions that I ask during our interviews are like, what sort of lab experience, can you talk a little bit about your proudest engineering moment? And a lot of them are like, this is not the answer I want to give, but I don't have experience. And I'm like, that's okay. You do though. Talk about MEE10, talk about engineering 7A. And I'm able to, lift up incoming members. And honestly, having that kind of relaxed atmosphere in the interview process made them feel a lot more confident. And those are the people who in the second half of their interview nailed their interview and then got on the team and are now like on my sub team or on a different sub team on STMS. And I think that I remember them coming back to me and saying like, hey, thanks so much for like not letting them drown in their interview, because they do have experience, and uplifting people and not being overly competitive about our roles on STMS. I think it's rewarding for me to see people happy, because I think happy sub team members are the most productive ones. And yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think similarly, it's easy to like forget, I guess, like how it was like before you were project manager, before you were in leadership. And I think just looking back at like the policies like that we've implemented and the change that we have made throughout the quarter and throughout the time that I have been in leadership has been really rewarding. Also, like if your team has a failure, it's hard to like look past that. But it's really important to just keep looking at the things that you have improved on and to keep improving as a team. And yeah, I think that's definitely like in the long run what's been rewarding as project manager.
Thank you for all the insights. My question is, what is the most important lesson you learned as a leader thus far?
I can jump at this one as well. The most important lesson that I've learned is not to sacrifice who I am, not because I had to learn the hard way, but because I'm so comfortable and happy in my current role. I'd say like, for me, I am proud of myself for not changing the way I look or changing the way I act or changing the way I dress to accommodate other people or to try to fit in. And I think we go back, there was the one question talking about like feeling isolated a little bit. I'd say I like to lean into that and embrace what makes me unique. And, there are moments when I did not feel like I was deserving of my leadership role or deserving of being project manager or anything else like that. And reminding myself that everything that makes me unique and makes me stand out as a leader and the way that I choose to structure sub-team meetings, choose to implement new policies is really special. And yeah, that's the lesson that I learned from college so far.
I want to speak to that a little bit because I did do that. I did change the way I dressed. And I did change like the way I would talk with certain people to not include my full self in order to be somewhat accepted more in the beginning. And it didn't work at all. If you all saw me walk in, I'm like 6 foot. I'm white, tall, blonde. Like I'm going to be noticed in any room. So it's something that I had to lean into, but I wasn't ready to do at the beginning. But I guess advice to the other people, like it's okay to not be ready and like you'll figure that out, but it is best to like be yourself and you'll come into that. I don't think I spoke to the question, but I did want to speak to that.
I think it also is the next question too. So we'll have a blend.
Oh,
of
okay.
answers.
Important lesson that you've learned. Oh, yeah, what's the next one? What is the most important lesson? Okay. I guess that is still a nice lesson, so I'll stick with that.
Definitely.
Anything else from someone? If not, we can move on to the next question. Yeah, let's do that. What is one piece of advice you have for younger women in engineering?
I guess I can start with that. I would definitely say, I mean, there's definitely great programs out there, kind of like what Maya and Liz were talking about. The program I went to was a little different. It was in Florida. I was the only girl in that program. I was the only one wearing a dress. But yeah, even though, and I would get backlash like from some of my peers and the professor at the time, and I was judged harsher. So it definitely gave me like a taste of what some of like the more negative aspects of engineering can be. But I'd say if it's something you really want to do and that's where your passion is, to definitely push past that. And yeah, just like not let people talk you out of what you really want to be doing.
Yeah, I think my biggest lesson to anyone just as like a young woman in STEM is explore your options. There's so much out there and there's so much that, especially if you don't have someone that you knew of older, just like try and figure it out through like SWE or other connections like us, or get involved. That's something that you have the ability to do here, and don't let the feeling of like a daunting situation hold you back, because you'll feel that in whatever stage of life or leadership position or engineering major you'll have. So you have to push through that in order to be like where you want to be.
Yeah, to echo Bonnie, I'd say get involved and then find a mentor. There's so many different ways to get involved, whether that's the engineering student orgs, just, going to office hours and getting really involved with the professor who then you do research with later on. The projects that the clubs do here are great opportunities to learn as well. And then I think mentors can help so much. So I had a mentor through SWE she's just become my like life mentor, was also a PAA. But there's so much power to having somebody who's been where you were, except, like 2 years back, who's been in your shoes and can give you advice and things they wish they could do differently. And there's so many also ways to find mentors, whether that's through LinkedIn and it's a professional mentor, an upperclassman, somebody in a different major that can give you a different perspective. It's a lot of ways to find support.
Definitely. With mentors, I think for me, I didn't really like lock into my identity as an engineering major and as a woman and a lot of different aspects until I took MEE 150 and had Professor Natasha Blisswell as a professor. And I thought I really enjoyed her class and the way it's structured, and I really related to her as a person. And I I didn't picture myself going to graduate school until I had her as a professor, because I couldn't put myself into any of the shoes that my professors were wearing up until then. And it wasn't until that when opportunities started to unlock for me. I started doing research with Buswell. I'll be first author on publication coming up. It's really like taking these opportunities as they come and running with it. And sometimes it's just chance. And I also, talking about what I was talking about earlier, like faking it until I make it is my motto. Like I put on my sunglasses and I like get on the bus and I'm like, I'm gonna make up this confidence for today. I'm not feeling good. I feel horrible, but I'm gonna put on my nice outfit and I'm gonna walk into lab. As long as you're wearing long pants and closed-toed shoes, you can, like be as fashionable as you want. And it makes me feel good from the outside in. And then I'm able to, I guess, project that out. Yeah, and that helps me get through my daily life. And I think advice that goes back to being yourself, dressing how you want. I remember walking into engineering 7A with like a pink frilly shirt, and I like curled my hair that day, and I like fully was like full princess with sparkles, and was like also team captain of my drone building like team. And yeah, and it just goes from there. So that's my advice: faking it until you make it, and take opportunities as they come.
Great advice from all. Thank you. And I think we're done with the pre-prepared questions. This is their contact information. If you have questions for them specifically or interested in some of the things that they're working on, feel free to contact them there. I'm sure they're willing to talk to you more about that. Before that, do we have any questions? We're kind of opening it up to a Q&A session. So
Yeah, I have two. I'm not that familiar with Hyperxite. How small scale is your model?
Right now we're working on about like 3 to 4 feet lengthwise, and then like width, like 2 feet. Yeah, it's definitely downsized from the one in Engineering Gateway, which I think the one everybody's most familiar with. So it's much smaller than
It's like
that.
under travel again.
No, yeah. So the entire structure itself is stationary, but yeah, we're aiming to test it on about 200 feet track.
So the question, I just want to reiterate the question so everyone can hear. The question was about how big the Hyperloop thing was. Fair answer. Next question, do you have anything else?
Oh, no, okay. Thanks, Optic. Second question. I want to know more about how you guys choose to structure your projects in terms of like recruitment. I appreciated the way mine said that like you're encouraging people in interviews, and I think that's really important because a lot of students do feel like they don't have any experience. And projects are supposed to be like their first shot at experience. And I know a lot of people who were excited to maybe join one project had an interview, had technical questions that they didn't know how to answer, didn't end up getting the position, and never got to join the project. So what do you guys like look for in a student?
So Bree's question is kind of long.
Hey.
Something along the lines of how is your project structured? What are the things you look for in a candidate while you're interviewing them, and some of the things that you do that she appreciates that. Great answer.
It's okay if I go first.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in interviews, I chose to get rid of technical questions. So there's no technical interview part of our STMS interviews anymore, at least until I'm not project manager anymore. A future project manager might bring them back. And then we have many sub teams, but the sub teams are 3 to 4 people. Because I want, if it's a student's first time doing research or doing literature review or writing a paper, it's really important for me to make sure that they're not going to be overshadowed by other members. And so that in a sub team meeting, say we're in a Zoom call or in a small room, it's like 4 people, and it feels more balanced for people to share what they are thinking. I think when it is larger, I think in a larger room, when there's more people who aren't feeling as confident yet in their technical knowledge, they don't ask questions. And the biggest part of learning for me and STMS and just in general is someone's ability to ask questions and not feel like a burden to ask those questions. So we have a really small sub team. I think my sub team is probably the largest because I chose to structure it that way, just with our technical stuff. And then that's 5 people. And then other sub teams are 3 to 4 people.
Yeah, Hyperxite does have technical questions. However, And they are live technical questions, which I know can be very, very daunting to students, especially since I was in those shoes. But we always echo that it's meant for us to observe how you think and solve problems rather than, did you get the right answer or not? So we don't, aren't grading you. We just want to hear how you think and predict how you'll learn on the team. I think something for us as well is we like to have smaller sub teams. So our sub teams range from 2 to 5 people. And this kind of ties hand in hand with our 1 year development cycle. So every year we start over on a new pod prototype and have smaller sub teams so that each sub team can point to one part of the pod and be like, I did that from, drawing it out on the whiteboard to testing it and seeing it on the entire pod, working with the other subsystems. So having that ownership and being able to work with a smaller team is one of our core values.
So my project's a little different. We are about 50 people, and we do have technical questions, and in order to combat some of the stress that I know can be involved in answering those on the spot, is we send out all technical questions beforehand so that there's time to prepare. We give at least 2 days, and if there's a need for a reschedule, we will reschedule. So that's how we can try and combat that. There is some things that we would require of technical knowledge, like welding experience, and just any like machining type experience, which will just be needed year to year for machining parts of the car that we don't have the money to outsource. And that's something that maybe other school projects would be able to outsource, but we can't. So we have to look for those technical skills in our candidates. And then something that we try to consider is, and I tried to do more so this year, is really have more of what we consider apprentices. So a younger audience, because we are still considered a senior design project. Seniors are a top priority in order to have them attend the class because it's for credit. However, we want to have this program be successful for years to come. And that only can happen if you have a strong transfer of knowledge. So it is important to have those apprentices, and that comes with usually less knowledge, which is completely understood, and they're mentored through that. But yeah, technical knowledge is still required for specific sub-teams, depending on which one you would like to join.
Yeah, I'd say our team is structured similarly just because we are a little bit of a larger team and we were blessed with like really big application pool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did just add a technical section this previous quarter to our application cycle. We do have a similar program where we have unofficial members that are younger and they're not put through the technical cycle. We're also very clear about each sub-team member's roles and the knowledge they should have before coming into the project. That's not always necessary. It's also really important just to get like the general vibe check on the members beforehand. And it's really important to have like a network of people that you can talk to too. Like I've definitely talked to like Maya just to double check on like certain members before adding them to the team, especially if they're transferring teams, which is really great about having a network of other project managers you can talk to. But yeah, way back when I was applying to projects, I was actually rejected from STMS a long time ago.
Technical question.
They said I went really well, but still got the rejection. But yeah, no, it's definitely something we're still working on. Again, like we're all students, so it's never gonna be perfect. This isn't like any type of training we get. So it's just kind of like learning as we go. Yeah, but it's definitely been useful, I'd say, like for our previous application cycle.
Awesome. Do you have any other questions? Thank you for the questions, by the way. I think I kind of.
I'll ask one. You guys are all project managers, and it's such like an impromptu role, given that you guys have to work on so many different things all at once. Just curious, like, where do you guys like look for inspiration, and how does like knowledge transfer for you guys kind of work out? So like, do you guys try to contact previous project managers to kind of improve on what they've done, or do you kind of do stuff on the spot? Just kind of curious how you guys structure.
I guess I'll speak to that first. So I definitely talk with the previous project manager and anyone else that like would be willing to hear me ask for advice. I don't like making a decision just because I want to be making the decision. So I would bring up almost any major decision for the team within management, or just like I'm not the only one, even though I'm project manager, there's a team of people working within management. So definitely talk to them, talk to people who were on the team previously. Part of the structure that we've had was all based off of the leads from last year. So we would ask, what do you think of the current number for the sub teams? Do you want that to increase, decrease? Why? What are the projects that you would be having this year? So it's very much based off of last year and the advice given from that, at least for me.
So the question was, how does knowledge between project managers kind of transfer over? And what are some of do project managers kind of contact other project managers to like, learn some of the things that they do and kind of improve upon that? Or do they just do it on the spot? That was the question.
I can.
Okay, no, you can.
So the previous Hyperxite project manager before me, thank you, Christine, made like this Bible for Hyperxite project managers, like this really long document of like any question I'm ever gonna have, like how much I-beam do we have? How do I, file a PO with UCI engineering? So that has been a really good resource for me. As well as for Hyperxite or management, I also work closely with our chief engineer and then our principal electronics engineer. So we're a triad. I've never it is isolating at times, but at the same time, like I have them too as my support network. So it's really nice, like, all right, hey guys, like, what do we think about this decision? Like, it's not just on my shoulders to decide, which has been really nice. And as far as I think you also talked about like inspiration of like leadership, I think the team itself has been a great inspiration. I think they it's always great hearing feedback. We have a lot of opportunities for feedback from our feedback forms, both in the middle of the quarter and then at the end of the quarter. So just trying to make an environment that they want to learn in, what they want the team to be like. So we do a lot of socials, if they want like more Gantt chart, we do more Gantt chart, more Rangel, we'll have Rangel there. So just hearing what they want to see and being able to make it happen has been really nice aspect.
Yeah, I think in terms of project manager transfer of knowledge, we have a similar document that's like almost a letter to future project managers that I also add to as I go along. That includes like basic passcodes for lockers and things like that, but also like, here's how I walk through a chemical bath deposition inventory, stuff that I would not have done being just a sub team lead or, purchasing a lot of the like super high level chemicals. I don't want to be carrying 99% hydrochloric acid across campus when there's a better way to do it. And so a lot of that like technical knowledge gets documented. But then also in my project manager interview, I came with ideas for what I would want to do if I were to get the project manager role. And so as I have now got the project manager role, obviously like previous management members did think that my ideas were going to be good. And then in terms of current decisions getting made, we haven't always had chief engineers on STMS just because generally we keep it small. And the previous year we had two chief engineers and then two project managers and then no chief engineers because each project manager acted as a chief engineer. But my condition was I would like two chief engineers so that we have a management group and it's not just me making decisions. And then in terms of inspiration, I think I've been lucky to have had a lot of leadership opportunities given to me and just on robotics, but then also like in college up until now, I had some really good models to follow, but then also some not so good models to follow. Like there's a lot of instances that are very common, like conflicts between sub-team members. I can think back to distinct experiences that I've had or I wish somebody else handled it better. And I can make an active decision to choose to handle it in the better way instead of getting mad because some product got, I don't know, spilled or, I don't know, something didn't go as well as we had hoped. I make an active decision in that moment to like be the leader that I wish I had like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I think Liz probably may have even seen conflicts like that go down in high school with like robot testing, where people get mad and people forget like the overall idea and the purpose of senior design projects. For us, like my job is to give an excellent learning environment so that you know, seniors or anyone for that matter can go into industry with some experience. The job is not to be, I don't know, I don't feel like I need to, I'm not super competitive about things. It's like looking, I don't know, I'm being super convoluted right now, but yeah, my main goal is to be giving a good learning environment and have an objective perspective about every student's experience. So that's, I guess, my inspiration in a way.
Yeah, I'd say definitely reaching out to previous project managers and any management or leads or members that you found helpful is definitely super important. We have a really great management team on the Rocket Project, even though there's only 2 of us. But all of the leads are always like included in all of our decisions. That was something that we struggled with in previous quarters with the project, but definitely having like open communication with your leads and your general members is super important. And if they feel like they're having a hand in the decisions, I've noticed that definitely goes a long way with the team. And then, yeah, definitely finding a mentor. Dr. Buswell was actually really pivotal to my experience as well. And she would always be there if I wanted to talk about just the Rocket Project as well, or any questions I had. And having just another like woman in leadership was definitely super important to me. There's also a project manager, like a couple of project managers back, and she's still available to talk to, and just having that network and growing that is super important.
Thank you. Any more questions?
So to anyone interested in getting within, you know, like that are like in management position for such big projects, like what would you describe as the obvious like stress that you would feel, especially when it comes down, because I'm assuming all projects have like their competition at the end of the calendar year. And so what's your like tips, or even just like general, like, hey, this is what it's about in terms of like because in engineering, they're kind of known to have not necessarily a set, like, you know, calendar, like you have a certain due date and then it ends up changing just because that's just sometimes how the engineering world goes. And so what would be your input on how you dealt with that in the management position, especially dealing with so many different sub teams and how they all integrate at the end?
So the question asked was, how do these project managers kind of keep up to speed with like kind of like the deadlines and like the other things that they have to deal with as a project manager?
I can start. I would actually argue the deadline is probably one of my least stressed things that I would be stressed about in a management role. It's the things that you weren't really aware of. It's the people coming to you with whether it is a personal issue, looking for a leader, needing any type of help, and being that leader for them. There's, again, things that you, even if you did get the Bible or the handbook, that maybe aren't written down yet, that you have to come up with. And you can still get as much advice as you want, but like some things you don't have that right answer. And that's what becomes stressful. The deadline, everyone knows it, everyone's aiming for it. And that one, like we have, even if we don't hit it, our overall goal is that people are learning and able to take this knowledge into industry or whatever else they are trying to do, whether it's graduate school or if they're trying to be a manager later in life. But yeah, it's the things that aren't written down that will stress you out a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd say similar to that. With such a big team, it's definitely difficult. I mean, there's no way you can micromanage everyone. That's just not possible. I try my best to like be in the lab as much as possible and checking in on the different sub teams and checking with the leads, but there's just, you have to like rely on the leads and you have to delegate. And that's something I've definitely had to learn in leadership is delegating. But yeah, I think one of the hardest decisions is definitely when the team is really gung ho about going to a test, they want to test the system. But if we're not ready and we haven't met deadlines, then we just can't, and it has to be postponed. And that's unfortunately something that's really difficult in industry as well. And as a management member, it can really suck to make that decision because it's looked at that the team kind of looks at you as that you've made that decision, even though we've agreed on these specifications of why we shouldn't go. But yeah, at the end of the day, you just do have to think about the team overall, and if it's going to be worth pushing your members past a point that they should be pushed, and also your budget, the system overall, the safety. So it's just keeping all of that into consideration.
All right, we'll open it up to questions again. Do we have any last questions?
Is there any way a first year can join any of the teams?
The question was, is there any way a first year can join any of the teams?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think the easiest answer is that look at your email. You'll see a lot of, especially around maybe like week 10 or like even through winter break, you might be seeing emails saying like so and so is recruiting, so and so project is recruiting, and normally that has the deadlines and the links, and I encourage you to apply. I don't know if any of these people are going to be recruiting. It depends on if there's spots open, but you're welcome to email the UCI spacethermal@gmail.com if you are interested in my project.
I'll speak to my project. Yes, it is open, but we do have a contract that we have people sign where it's a 3-quarter commitment because we have the year-to-year car built and then the competition at the end. Now, there's exceptions for people who are graduating early or for whatever the possible reason, but we try to keep that in mind. We don't want the project to be half completed just in the middle of the year. And we really only have one recruitment period, and that's the end of spring. And that's when management changes because they're usually like going off, graduating or doing whatever else they're going to be doing. And the only time that we would be recruiting is if someone were to graduate early or if someone were to leave the team. So our spots don't open up as much as some other projects would, and it's really just a major recruitment period during the spring and through summer.
Yeah, same thing for Hyperxite. We have one big recruitment cycle at the end of each academic year for the following academic year. We also have a 3-quarter commitment so that we have, the same people on the team just consistently so that, like I said, everybody has that sense of ownership at the end of the day. But yeah, definitely first years have been on Hyperxite before. We actually don't have any on right now. We do have second years. Our recruitment cycle, we've learned we kind of want to shift it back a little bit because I think the application was due like a week after the commitment, when the incoming freshmen have to commit to a college. So we're looking to change that to be a little bit more accommodating for incoming first years. But yeah, definitely we look for all levels, and like we mentioned previously, it's important to have different years to have that transfer of knowledge.
Yeah, it's the same for the Rocket Project. We actually do have a few freshmen on our team right now. So for us, it's a little different. So you'd be like considered an unofficial member and you'd get like a quarter to try us out. Our next recruitment cycle would be like in the spring. But yeah, if you're interested, I definitely recommend like sending us an email. Our email's up there for the Rocket Project. We give like lab tours and stuff like that too. But yeah, if you're getting like involved early is like definitely super important. And yeah, it's great that you're already thinking about it.
Anything else? Any other questions? I think I kind of asked my questions at the beginning between the questions that we're supposed to ask, but yeah. If not, then can we just get a round of applause to the panel? And then I think that's it. So I think we're free to go unless you guys want to stay a little bit after and just ask the panelists questions one-on-one. But apart from that, I think no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Akshay.
Good job, Akshay.
My Zoom.
Post, it's gonna see me stretching.